Hi, it's Cara and today we are doing my January wrap-up. So I read 27 things in January, which I'm super proud about. A lot of them were graphic novels and manga, but I did read, I think it was 7 things off my physical TBR and some audiobooks as well. So let's jump in. I'm going to go through in chronological order of when I read them, and I was keeping track of ratings written down throughout the month. So for the first time in a long time, I can actually tell you what I rated them with some degree of certainty. Right here in my face, in your face. Also, I'm also going to link below my reviews for everything. I'm doing reviews on GOODREADS for everything I read this year. So check out down below for those if you want to look up any particular one for any particular book. They're a little spoilery. They're not the spoileriest thing you've ever read in most cases, but they might have a few things that some people might consider a spoiler, so keep that in mind if you're checking those out. Otherwise, let's get started. So first off, in January, I read, just confirming, yes, I read The Lightning Bolt and The Butterfly in Amber, which is book 5 and 6 in the Chain of Charms series, which finishes out the series. I've now completed it. Exciting. These are a middle grade historical fantasy series following this group of gypsies who, during Cromwell's reign, get arrested, and the 2 young kids, Amelia and Luca, as their cousins, escape, and they're on a mission to collect this chain of charms, this like charm bracelet from different like extended family members from the Romani, so that they can put it together to bring luck to the family and help the family escape. So book 5 and book 6, I rated this one 3.5 stars and this one 4 stars, but I'm very glad to have read this series and for finally to be over. This is one of my favorite childhood series and I really enjoyed finishing it off finally. Then I read, for the Dragons and Tea book club, I read The Wicked King by Kate Ancrum. This is a magical realism, hard-hitting contemporary combo. It follows Jack and August. August is our kind of like main character, and his friend Jack he's developed a hallucinatory disorder. And so it kind of follows this hallucinatory adventure that they go on in his attempt to support Jack. It looks a lot at toxic relationships, mental health issues, the found family, but also terrible families, like family abuse, queer relationships. I really enjoyed it, but it's weird. It's kind of told in a very short style that reminded me a lot of fan fiction I read a long time ago, and I don't know how much that sat well with me, but the themes are really interesting and I had a confused time, but I did write a detailed review and I also have a reading vlog up, so you can look at that too for this book. Overall, I rated it 4 stars. Then I went on to read The Legend of the Golden Raven, which is its companion novella, which kind of retells the book from Jack's point of view, so kind of spends more time in the delusion than the original book does. And I enjoyed the writing style of this better, but the content's less developed. So overall I gave it also 4 stars. Yes, I also gave it 4 stars. Then I read Feet of Clay by Terry Pratchett. This is the like, I don't know, 17th or something. This is like the 19th book in the Discworld series. This series is a huge long-running, it's obviously over now because Terry Pratchett sadly died, but this is a really huge fantasy series. It's like a fantasy comedy, and there's a lot of characters and there's kind of different arcs. Every book kind of has its own standalone plot, so you can read them almost entirely out of order. I think books 1 and 2 are the only ones you have to read in order, but I'm reading mostly in order. I've read a few random ones that I don't think I'd technically be up to if we were reading in order. But if you're looking at, I've read some Discworld non-fiction, and I've read some illustrated editions. But if you follow the actual original like series, I'm reading in order, and then I will probably read the children's series after that. I'm collecting slowly these, what are they called? These like hardback, no dust jacket collection. I think it's the Unseen Library collection or something like that. And so yeah, they're divided into kind of character groups. So this is part of the City Watch collection, which follows the City Watch, obviously. So this follows Vimes and Nobby and Carrot and all our City Watch friends, and it includes golems. It has a bit of some gender fun and what it means to be human, and it was really good. This was one that the premise didn't really like scream at me. Some of them I look at, especially the death ones. I really like the death novels. The City Watch ones never screamed to me as appealing, and then I read them and love them, which was the case with this. I gave this 4.5 stars. Then we have a manga, and that's Skip Beat Volume 1 by Yoshiki Nakamura. I didn't like this that much. This is not my kind of thing, I realized. It's about a girl named Kyoko who followed her true love to Tokyo because he wants to be famous, and then she finds out he's just using her to pay his rent, and she gets mad and tries to become famous in revenge. It's weird. Let's see what I rated it. I rated it 2.5 stars. I really didn't like it that much. The writing style was weird and the plot was weird. I just didn't get it. Then, when do I want to talk about this? I'll talk about them now. Actually, no. They're in the stack way later. Then I read an audiobook, but it's part of a series, and I have the bind-up, and I read them over the month. So I'll talk about it when we get to the bind-up in my stack, which is like at the end of when I finished it. So I read an audiobook here. Keep that in mind. This was the spot if we come back to it, when we come back to it later. Then I read another audiobook, which was An Unkindness of Magicians by Cat Howard? I'm blanking. It's called An Unkindness of Magicians. The cover will be here. I can't remember the author's name. This I listened to on audiobook because it's available on Scribd, and it's quite short. This is an urban fantasy. Our main character Sydney is a witch, wizard, magical user, magician. Let's go with magician because it's An Unkindness of Magicians. Yes, she's a magician, and there's this big tournament with all the families of magicians in this hidden like society in New York to determine which family is going to run the society. And she, when the call goes out to the tournament, she gets involved, but no one knows where she came from or who she belongs to, and she kind of stirs the pot a bit. I really enjoy this. I thought it was really interesting. I think I'd heard some faults from a couple of people that it had too many characters and too many plot threads and that it got a bit lost, and I can kind of see why you would think that. If you have a hard time keeping up with characters, that would definitely be a problem, but I was so invested in the overall threads of the story that I didn't even care. I think the only characters I kept getting confused were two of the boys, only because they visually weren't distinguished in my head. They didn't have enough visual characteristics that they just seemed like two generic boys off Gossip Girl, and it was only their personality that was kind of different. But it's very mystery, so I kept getting confused as to whether this was the other boy or this was the same boy talking to someone else, so he was saying different things, like lying. But I teased it out by like a quarter of the way in. So it was really good. I loved it. I thought the magic system was really interesting and dark, and it was so good. I gave An Unkindness of Magicians 4.75 stars. Then we have Gate 7, Volume 1. I gave this 3.5 stars. This is another manga. It follows a guy who goes to Kyoto and then accidentally falls into a magical realm when he visits a shrine. It's a mystery kind of one. I enjoyed it, but I also felt like this one didn't develop the plot too well. Like, I was left so confused just because, but in more of a mystery way. Like, I just wanted a few more threads to be revealed in this first volume. This is a manga I might continue. I gave it 3.5 stars. Then I read Crooked Kingdom by Lee Bardugo. This is the sequel to Six of Crows, which I read at the end of last year or halfway through last year. This is the sequel series duology to the Grisha in the Grishaverse, the second series, and follows Kazbroker and his team of heist runners, and the primary heist happens in the first book, and then this is like the book where you're dealing with the fallout of the heist, but also includes, in my opinion, better heist elements, like them actually trying to pull off this return from the heist is better than the heist elements in the first one. So really, it's kind of like they should be considered really a very strong unit, because this is the half of Eurasian's movie where everything's gone to shit and they're sorting it out to really pull it off. I understand why it was split into it. It does have a natural splitting point, but I think this one had the stronger tension and the stronger elements, and the character development in this was amazing, which is what this series is always lauded for, is its character development, which I totally agree. It was great. I can't wait to read King of Scars, which just came out and will be in my haul, which I'm also filming today. And I can't wait to read that, to spend more time with Nina and also Nikolai. I gave this 5 stars. Then we have The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is the sequel to The Cruel Prince, which is a YA fantasy fae story following Jude, her and her twin sister, their mother was kidnapped by a fairy leader, he's like a general, and then she escaped and went back to the mortal world and had them, and then the fae general comes back to get his revenge and kills her and takes the children. So Jude and her twin sister and their half sister Vivian were raised by the fairy general, but she's obviously not fae, she's mortal, and it's mostly about her trying to develop power and find her place in this fae world, because she doesn't fit in the mortal world either. And the sequel just really continues off from where the first book ends. I enjoyed both of these books, but I don't quite get the hype. I don't get the absolute love people have for the ships in this. I kind of find them very unhealthy, but in like everyone says they're unhealthy, but we can't help liking them. I can help liking them. I don't care that much. I find the plot engaging while I'm reading it, but it's also super forgettable. And I don't think it's the best thing ever. I think it's good, but it's not the best thing ever. And there was some pacing problems in this, which they were in the first one as well. So I give this a 3.5 stars. Then we have Are You Alice Volume 1 by Ikumi Katagiri and Ninomiya. I really enjoyed this. This is a gender-bent Alice retelling, a dark Alice retelling, and I think it's done really well. This left a lot of 13, but also developed really well for a first volume. And I would be very excited to get more volumes in this series. I give this a 4.25 stars. Then I read another manga, which is Black Clover Volume 1 by Yuki Tabata, and I rated this a 3.5 stars. This is kind of like a magic thing and anti-magic. It was interesting, but I don't know if it was my favorite. I think I would definitely read more of these. It is very dark, but it also has a lot of titties. So, I don't know. I don't know if that was up my alley. But I'd be interested to maybe try another volume of this and see what I think. And I give this 3.5 stars. Then I read another audiobook, which is from that series that I'll talk about later. And then I read Naruto Volume 1 by Masashi Kishimoto. This is obviously a lot of people's favorite manga, or a lot of people have read this. I didn't hate this. It was really good. I didn't love it either though. I gave it like a 3.5. It was fun, but it was very silly, very immature. Like he literally spends one section just like shitting, you know, on the toilet. So I liked it, but I didn't absolutely love it. It was good, but I don't know if I'll keep reading. 3.5 stars. Then I read a book which like is totally gonna be on my faves of the year, and I think a lot of people are saying that. I absolutely loved it to pieces. And that is The Guild of Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. This is a new heist series, and so a lot of people are making comparisons between this and Six of Crows, but I read this and Crooked Kingdom in the same month and did not feel bored at all. Like, they're not rip-offs. Obviously there's a lot of heist tropes that are in this, but it's a heist novel, so they have heist tropes. And heists always have a cast of like 6 characters because you need like a 6 team to make a heist, if not more. And so it's really just a heist novel. So if it's an Ocean's movie, it's like all of them have the same tropes. So it's not a copy of Six of Crows, don't worry. This is a historical fantasy set in 1889 Paris. And the magic system kind of works around the ability to manipulate objects or people. And there's these old families. And our main character Severin is from this old family that he was meant to be the heir, but at the time that he was supposed to have it all passed on to him, he was declared not the heir, and things happened. Yeah, this was so good. This is a lot of, this is mainly Severin's like attempted rise to power. So we have Severin, Layla, who's the love interest. That is, the angsty relationship here is so good. Everyone's like praising this for its angst, and I so agree. It's so good. They're an established, currently not together relationship, but their flirtationship was already established prior to the beginning of the plot. We also follow, also in this is Tristan, who's Severin's like adopted brother. Enrique, who is what's he do best? He's a historian. Zafia, who is an engineer, and what's the other guy's name? Hypnos, who is the heir of one of the other houses, and he's kind of their backer. So we have Zafia, who is, to me, reads autistic, or at least on the autism spectrum, and is Polish Jewish. We have Severin, who's Algerian, so a light-skinned African, half African, half Parisian, so he is white passing, but is African, which comes into play a lot. Hypnos is a darker, like a West African, and doesn't pass as white, and that's a big deal for him. He's also gay. Enrique is Spanish Filipino and is bi. There's a kind of potential polyamorous ship in there. Layla is Indian and super sex positive. Tristan also seems like he has some mental health issues going on, but it wasn't fully fleshed out in this novel, so I'm interested to see what happens with that in the second novel. This is just so good. So good. Absolutely loved this. The plot is amazing, the characters are amazing. There are a few world-building times when it was either under-explained or a little info-dumpy, but they were few and far between, and that's like my only fault with this. It was amazing. If you can't tell, I give it 5 stars. Then I read Paper Girls Volume 5 by Brian K. Vaughan, Cliff Chang, Matt Wilson, and Jared K. Fletcher. I rated this 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I think this was probably one of the stronger volumes in this series so far. It really explained a lot of things which were very questionable early on. I'm really excited to see where this series continues to go. It's a sci-fi, time travel-y weird thing, but it's great. Then for the Book in a Jar Club, I read Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is a start of a trilogy that is about superheroes and supervillains, and it is so good. so good. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. There are a few things troubles I had with it, and part of that was my reading experience, I think, because I split this up into 4 sections, which was kind of how the Goodreads group was working, but I only read 1 section a week. So I feel like if I had read this all in one hit, my enjoyment would have been a little higher. So mine got a 4.5 stars. Hey, kidden, stop it. But as it stands, I got a 4 stars. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, it read like a comic book. It was really, really good, and I can't wait to read Arch Enemies, which is book 2, and book 3 comes out later in the year, so I'm hopeful to like cap off the whole series. Then we had Lumberjanes Volume 10, Parents' Day. This was really cute. This is a Girl Guides kind of, or Girl Scouts graphic novel following a bunch of queer girls of colour. It's really cute, and all their parents were coming to the camp for this day, and there was a bit of an adventure, and it was great fun. I really enjoyed this. What did I rate it? 3.5 stars. It was really good. Then I read In an Absent Dream by Shauna Maguire. This is the 4th book in the Wayward Children's series, and this follows Lundy. I loved this. I really got along well with Lundy's character in this. We like worked great. And she goes to the Goblin Market, which is like a strict world with lots of rules. This was amazing. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it was so good. I rated it 4.5 stars. Then I read all 4 currently out volumes in the Goldie Vance series. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. This series is like a Nancy Drew mystery series with a whole bunch of people of colour and queer characters. It is so good. Overall, I rated them a 4 stars for the first volume, a 3.75 for the second, 4 for the third, and a 3.75 for the fourth. The difference basically is just in how much I enjoyed the actual mystery, and what I really liked about these is the care that was taken to make sure each volume was a self-contained mystery. Very good. Greatly recommend these, especially if you're into like historical style, like it's like 60s, 50s, 60s style, without being heavily historically accurate, with lots of queer characters. It's kind of like the Sabrina kind of historical, where there's some modern things but also some older things. Queer characters and people of colour, it's so good. Now let's have a look at this bind up. So I read, there's 3 books in the main series and a novella in this, and I read all 3 main books on audio, which are narrated by Tim Curry. They're amazing. And I also read the novella from the physical bind-up, and this is the Old Kingdom Chronicles by Garth Nix. So that's Sabriel, Lyrael, and Aborson. I loved these. Tim Curry's a great narrator for these. He does the voices so well. They're so immersive. This series essentially follows this magical kingdom that kind of, it's like part high fantasy, part historical fantasy. So there's like a world that looks very much like England. It's called Alcestier. And then across the wall is what looks like much more like your traditional Lord of the Rings style high fantasy. And then in this high fantasy world, magic exists, and our main characters all deal with the dead, and they can move the dead in and out of life and things like that. It's awesome. It's a great magic system. I fell in love with the magic system in this series. I rated Sabriel, the first book, 5 stars. I rated Lyrael 4.5, and I rated Aborson 4.75. And the marks were lost in Lyrael and Aborson because the plot of these 2 is really one big plot that travels over both novels. So to me, neither one of them stood alone very well, which I think was kind of to their detriment. Like if I finished Lyrael and I was reading them at the time they were publishing it, it wouldn't have been a good solid installment. It needs Aborson, which runs directly on from it, to make it work as a story. But if you consider them one novel, the 2 of them together, it would be 5 stars. And then the novella, which is Nicholas Sayre and the Creature in the Case, I rated 3.5. It was good, but I missed my main characters from the rest of the story, which are my fave. Like, I love L'Oreal, and I love Sabriel, and I love Touchstone, and I love Mogget, and the disreputable dog, and and Sam. This is such a good series. I 100% recommend them. They're a bit old now, and so there is some stuff that if this had come out now, I would expect from it that it wouldn't have delivered. Like, it could have more diversity or more explicit diversity, because it's not like strictly not diverse, but it doesn't go into any detail. Like, it could be explicitly diverse rather than like have the J.K. Rowling stuff of, oh yes, but Hermione was black all along. Well, you didn't say that. So if this was coming out now, it would definitely be faulted for those things, I think, but for its time, its magic system and its writing style is just so good. It's classic pre-YA fantasy, before YA was a proper genre, when it was just like children's or adults, and this kind of borders the line between children's and adults. In fact, the characters are all really like new adult age. Sabriel in the first book is 19 turning 20, and Touchstone is in his 20s, but it reads younger than an adult fantasy, so it's a weird genre one, but oh my god, it's so good. I recommend this so much. I can't wait to read Clariel, which is the prequel, and Golden Hand, which is the sequel series that came out only like in the last 5 years, rather than the rest of these came out in the 90s. It was so good. It's so good. I loved it so much. Then I read The Brilliant Death on audiobook by Amy Rose Copetta. This is a historical fantasy of an Italian kind of look. Our main character, Theodora, is the second daughter of like a mafia don. And she has this magical power, which means she can turn people into inanimate objects. And her dad dies, and she goes to see the carpet. It's a whole thing. It's a thing. I liked some parts of this, but I didn't like others. I had a hard time connecting, at least on the audiobook, with the characters and the plot. But it does do this little exploration of gender. One of the secondary main characters can switch fluidly between male and female, and so kind of identifies as neither and both at the same time, and that was interesting, but I don't think it was explored to its full capacity, so I think I ended up giving this 3 stars overall. It wasn't bad, but I had a hard time connecting to things, so Some other things that are in progress at the end of the month, so will turn up in my February wrap-up, or later wrap-ups. I read the first quarter of City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I'm doing a reread of the Cassandra Clare novels, and this year, all year, I will be reading City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass. So I'm only reading a quarter each month, and I am annotating. So I've been writing in it. I don't know if you can see many bits that have been written in there, but yeah, I'm writing in it, I'm annotating it. So I finished the first quarter in January, and I'll read the second quarter in February. So when I finish the whole book, I'll flick through and show you my annotations. I'm also currently reading Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore on audiobook, and I'm about a third of the way in maybe. And then I'm also currently reading Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence, which I was hoping to have done by today, which is the end of the month, but I'm nowhere near done, so I'm not going to finish it tonight. I'm on page 158 of like 400 pages, so I'm also really enjoying this, but this will be in my February wrap-up. So those are all the books that I read in the month of January. Please comment down below if you want to chat about any of these. Definitely check out the Goodreads reviews down below, and otherwise I'll see you soon with my January haul. I'm so excited to film this haul.